morning, it's May 24th at 8:30 a.m. We are here for third session of negotiations with the city and fire union. Good morning, guys.
Good morning. Good morning.
Before we get jumped into the multitude of stuff we all have sitting on our desks, the city, if you don't have any objections, needs to add a third member to our negotiating team. It'd be Matt Curbs from legal. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
The reason is I have a hard stop today, and if we're still going, I'll just have him come instead of me, not in addition to me.
Very good.
We don't have enough room at our table for three.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, how would you guys like to start this morning?
I think.
Ken, will you turn back the microphone back in here? Good, isn't it? Okay, I think we're good.
You said that you had a proposal for our day staff, pay proposal for our day staff.
It's at the end
It's at the
of
end.
my pile to get
Okay. Well, if you've got some stuff to get through, if you don't mind, we'll be all ears for you.
So before we jump into new, we would like to revisit what is on the table at this point.
Okay.
At this point, we haven't even TA'd on a clean CBA. So how are you guys with our proposal one?
We're still getting through it. So I think we're probably pretty close on that one. At least I've been through it a few times. Anybody else? have anything?
Maybe this afternoon.
I think this afternoon we could probably address that one. Or after we caucus.
How about city's original two, which is the application and controlling documents and removing of references from the handbook?
So on that one of our thoughts on that one is we have SOGs that kind of govern how the department runs. And we thought that might be a good fit for SOG, and it would give us a little more time to work on it outside of what we're doing here. A lot of those things kind of slot into our SOGs as a governing document, and that's a place for our members to go when they have questions on stuff like that.
So when you say things, I think you might be
Let me pull that one up.
splitting here.
Sorry, I might be on the wrong one. Was 2, right?
Yeah, two.
Sorry, I think I was talking about 3. I think we're still trying to get through those documents on this one.
The 3 reference?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then city 3 revised, we pointed out, which clarify that fallbacks. That's handed out.
Yeah, that was the one that we feel like can probably fit pretty well in SOG.
And the city was no interested in going in SOG because those are not approved by council.
Okay. And when you say not approved by council, what do you mean?
So those are not ratified by council. There is a handbook and collective bargaining, both go before council for approval, SOGs do not. So we
Okay.
would not want to include those in SOG.
Okay. We will talk about that.
Okay. Are we okay, Ken?
Yep, keep going.
All right. Yeah, actually, 3, 4, 5, 6. City proposal 7.
So I believe we gave you a counter proposal that addressed part of this proposal. So
So your
we'll,
response is just the counter.
correct.
8, We had an original view counter, we counted on that.
So we're close on this one. We, sure.
I don't remember exactly where we're at with the counter proposal, but one concern we have with number 8 is the language that talks about the staff can basically force you to come in on overtime and do bilingual work when, if you're out of town or if you're just purely unavailable, is that punitive if they call and say, we need you to come in right now, and if you don't, that's a breach of the contract? That's our number one concern at this point is we would like to see something that was, you can be called back, and we can ask you to come back on overtime, but we can't, you're not gonna get in trouble if you're out of the country and you're unavailable for callback. That's our big concern with this one.
I'm gonna need a language response from you then, so I understand how you want
Okay.
that worded.
Okay.
But we do need people who respond to just city situations, not fire department situations.
Okay.
That was the
Yeah, and then-
reason, the benefit is that we.
We understand that, but it was the, and I don't, like I said, I can't find the exact wording right now, but if you're not on shift and the chief calls and says, I need you to come in right now, according to this contract, he can basically force you, or excuse me, not contract, but this language is he can force you to come in, and if not, that could be, in our opinion, considered to be punitive. And so that's the language that we're scared of at this point.
It says that employee may be required. On number subsection B, number 3, on the revised.
I think we need to just revise the language and
Yeah, that's, I was just wanted to bring that up to let you know what we're still working on this one, and we have some small concerns, but I think we're getting close on it.
And if you want, like Heather said, if you want to offer some language there, I personally think that it's interpreted pretty easily as where it says may be required. There's a reasonableness standard there. I mean, if you're out of the country, they're not expecting you to hop on the red eye and get back to interpret for us, right?
Yeah.
So, but if you want to offer something that kind of addresses that concern, we'd be happy to look at it.
Okay, cool.
So then we're at 9, which was Article 22, Section A and B.
So I think we're probably gonna have to address a lot of the promotions section with the new pay plan. So I think we were gonna wait on this one and try to address all of it at the same time.
So the problem is we never address it then, because it just gets pushed to the end and we're all tired and we've now finished pay and then we don't want to address it. If we address these sections, we still have a chance to revise other language that will obviously have to be revised in this because part of these positions won't exist or named differently. But I still think we can get some adjusted
stuff done in
language
there.
in.
Okay, we'll take that one back.
And we're
look at
happy
that
to
one.
put under the discussion notes on the bottom of this, if we were to TA this as future changes will be applicable based on what we do with the scales.
Okay, we'll take a look at that one.
10 is the Article 6 discrimination. So last time we talked about this, you guys asked if we could pare this down. I don't see a way of paring it down because when you get to the federal legislation, it's massive. This is very pared down. It's more guidance than explanatory.
So, do we have a clause for this one in the contract?
Yes.
That refers to this one? Is that gonna be different? I know you wanted to put it in a place where our members could have access to it. Is that gonna be different than the clause that's already in the contract that says that this is referenced?
I struck both those clauses and this is replacement language.
And is that not okay for you guys to have that as a reference still? We just don't want our contract to be this, giant document.
The problem is, and we're running into it more often than not, is there are sections of the handbook that you utilize that are not defined in CBA. They're not agreed upon in CBA and you're receiving benefits and then we change those, and then it becomes a problem, but it is in no way referenced. So if it's going to be something that's applicable, we want it as part of the document. Otherwise, it just needs to say the most current version of the handbook. Because the handbook's 100 pages, a contract's 50 pages, I now have 7 documents on my desk to figure out which one's applicable.
Okay. So we're not ready with this one yet either.
Okay. 12 was the city's proposal to redo the reasonable suspicion and drug and alcohol testing, the drug and alcohol testing.
We've looked through this one and we're still working on this one too.
Thirteen is utilization language on sick leave and adding the FMLA policy.
I got a question. What's the reasoning for adding language for what sick leave is and when and how it can be utilized? What's the reasoning for that?
Because we run into problems with people misusing it, or they go on vacation and then they get sick, and we have to explain how fast that conversion has to happen, defining what uses of sick leave, like you can't take sick leave to take your pet to the vet. This is a common question we have in HR. So it's just adding all that language that again is applicable to you at this time, but again, is not referenced or defined anywhere. And we have had firefighters that have converted vacation to sick leave, and again, we're just applying the handbook in a section that is not agreed upon to them.
Okay. You guys have any other questions on this one?
Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah, we're still getting through that one as well.
I do have a general question about a lot of these personnel policy handbook conclusions. How would you guys feel about perhaps having articles that address these and reference some sort of appendix to the contract that maybe included this more detailed language that I guess would technically still be part of the contract, but then when you're just pulling the contract up, it's not this giant kind of bloated document. It's pared down and then references an appendix to the contract. Would that be a way to handle these?
We
very
have
large
no preference
documents?
if they're the same thing for us.
You don't see
A
the
contract and
difference.
appendix
Okay.
are the same document.
Okay.
It's just
So-
where you're placing it. It doesn't matter to us.
Some of that may alleviate our concerns with having.
I am not a fan of us addressing it in what you're calling the contract proper and then going to an appendix and having to exist both places. I don't understand why we do that. You have to now go to 2 places to find the information rather than one. But we have no preference if it's what you're calling the body document or if it's an appendix, because they're both the same thing for us.
The thing you have to be careful with doing that is if in the contract it has a short blurb about whatever the subject matter is, and then it refers you to an appendix that has the more extended version, and making sure that language doesn't disagree in any way. I mean, if you're gonna list policies just by name only, that might be a cleaner way. To me, it's like Heather said, it's the same. It's all contained within the contract itself, whether it's a section or an appendix. But if that's something that's more appealing to you and your members, then we can definitely look at that. I just wouldn't want there to be any contradictory or language that makes you think that that's the sick leave policy, for example, not realizing that Appendix C is a 3-page sick leave policy, and there'd be confusion that way.
Sure.
People tend to read the paragraph and not go to the appendix, and then they work off of that as what's applicable to them. We've
Yeah,
found
and
it.
I don't know that for like sick leave policy, that would be something to do, but just looking at the harassment policy, there's a lot of very specific information in there, and then what's included is examples of like, this is harassment and this is harassment. And so I don't know that those examples need to be included in the contract proper, but they could maybe be included in an appendix if people need more information. You know what I mean?
I do.
Just
and-
because a lot of that starts to become kind of fluff that doesn't really directly apply to the, I guess, the very base of the policy.
And I would very strongly not recommend having paragraphs in both the CBA and then into the appendix. That makes it even worse. So unless you're just strictly referencing Appendix A is applicable, I don't think that that would be a route we would be interested in.
Okay. Knowing that, we'll talk about that.
I like it when I can turn the page and we've done it. City Proposal 16 addresses prescription medicine.
I think this one we're really close on as well. We don't see any glaring issues with it, unless you guys have something to talk about.
Just to kind of mirror what's in the city policy handbook.
It's actually coming from ICRIM. This is becoming a more common, it's becoming a much more common issue nationwide, is how to handle prescription medication, because there are so many different types now, especially coming on and off medication, which has, as we know, big impacts on your health. They're looking for protective language around there to protect the employee and the city in this situation.
And this is the same exact language as in the handbook now.
And is this is language that ICRIMP recommended as well?
Well, ICRIM sends out a draft handbook and then we make it better.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, we're close on this one.
Because they write for all entities in Idaho, we kind of customize it down to what we see.
Sure.
We have the city revised number 17, which was the limited duty, Article 23.
So what we're looking to understand on this proposal is the why. Why are you seeing this as an issue that you want to address?
We're aware, and we've just started actively tracking them, of light duty situations for personal injuries that have extended at least 12 months. So taxpayer dollars are going to pay someone for a position that they are not completing the essential duties and functions, and that has been a calendar year. So we're looking to put some constraints on around that to match FMLA, which for firefighters at the 2912 is the 672 hours. Between FMLA and the light duty allowance here, it would get them to at least half a year, and then it would need to be addressed through ADA if they can do the functions of the job at that time.
How would ADA apply to somebody who is in recovery from, say, a back surgery?
And that's a
At
good
that
question.
point in
So if
time.
they've exhausted their FMLA,
If they're expected to return to work at some
so
point, though.
then they would go at a time without pay status. So taxpayer dollars aren't paying them for a job that they're not doing. Right now, if battalion chiefs are highest paid position in the union, they could be doing light office work, which is considerably less cost, but we're also paying step up. So we're double paying that position. It's just, there has to be constraints. It can't be open-ended on personal injuries. Obviously, OJIs are a completely different cat. They're not even in the same realm, but personal injuries, if you can't do the duties of the job, there needs to be some thresholds on what is allowable and what is not. And half a year is very generous for someone to not be able to. The FMLA is easy, and then the 672 hours grants them another quarter of job protection before we would have to sit down and have an assessment. It can't just be an open-ended check.
Light duty has its benefits too, though, right? I mean, because you're holding on to employees that have been very expensive to train up, and they've got lots of experience and lots of institutional knowledge. So doesn't it seem concerning that we may be getting rid of good employees that just had an accident, maybe their fault or maybe not their fault? Doesn't that seem concerning to the city?
Well, personal injury, it doesn't matter if they're at fault or not. It's not a work injury, so I'm going to make a quick delineation there. But it also doesn't make sense to keep an employee on who can't do the functions of the job for that knowledge base that they have. Just because they go through ADA doesn't mean they're fired. It might mean we look at other positions. It might mean we make modifications to equipment or shifts. It gives a lot more protections to the employee. ADA has to do with the city budget. It has nothing to do with the fire department budget. And the fire department budget versus the city budget are very different things. Federal regulations on ADA are solely focused on protecting the individual, not how it affects everyone around them. So it's the best job protection we can give to an employee who cannot complete the functions of their job.
So this one's gonna be difficult for our membership. We wanna have a good contract that we bring back to them. So we're gonna have to look at this one pretty in depth.
This is a pretty high on our list because it is getting expensive to run people for 6-7 months on not doing their job.
So I have a question. So how many of those have we had in the fire department?
I don't have full research done because, as you're aware, our finance system is a little bit sad because a lot of it is we're not knowing because you're not logging it, which is why the new project code went into place for us to track it. Just because we're putting some restrictions on this, again, does not mean someone's going to be fired. It means we're going to assess it individually on a maybe outside medical professional review or a doctor certification so we understand those limitations. Right now, there's no constraints on it, and there needs to be constraints.
I'm just thinking, I can't think of too many individuals in my 30 years that were on light duty for a year.
No,
That were-
but you can think of people who've been on it for 12 weeks.
Because of the problem we have is like somebody in the city building, Kirk Bidey was able to come to work with a double knee replacement. People can come to work with simple surgeries that we just can't. And can you think of, I mean, a simple rotator cuff, which happens a lot, could be 16-week recovery. Well, in a lot of departments, they can come in and still do their job, but we can't in ours. So we're talking that just simple surgeries, we can't recover fast enough to get back on the job in this 12-week time.
Well, yeah, we completely understand. That's why it's 12 weeks of FMLA and then 12 weeks of light duty and then an assessment of where we sit. It's not a hard cutoff. It's for the first 1,200 hours for half a year, that employee has the job protections built in from the CBA. And then after that double 672 hours, we would assess it on a case-by-case
But if
basis.
they don't have the time to cover it, that's without paying the rest.
With FMLA, while on FMLA, they're eligible for donated time. But if they're light duty, they're getting full pay.
Only for the first 12 weeks, because you run it concurrently.
No, light duty would run separate from the FMLA. That's what we're saying. After you exhaust FMLA, you would then have the light duty restriction, the light duty ability. We're not running these concurrently.
This is just a very hard one because it's been a benefit that we've had it for as long as I can remember. That this has been a long time benefit in good times and in bad. We've always been, so Jordan, correct.
And one of our big concerns is guys coming back to work too early.
Well, and that's where we have to have a medical release from a doctor. We brought a very aggressive pay plan for you. I asked for very little in that. But part of that is because we're asking for cultural changes. That's why we're doing everything at once. Because we're changing the department structure and moving to a paramedic stipend, as I understand, is a big cultural shift in the department. This is another cultural shift that the city would like to see. Again, you don't have employees very frequently that go to a year. You also don't have a lot of employees that are going to exhaust that 6 months. So this would be a very limited group, and they would still have the federal protections of ADA, which are massive. ADA is easily another 12 weeks in most situations, minimum. You look at those things individually, and because the job is a physical job, that would be taken into account when ADA is assessed from the physician's notes.
So are you tying this light duty clause into our pay?
No, I'm just saying, I felt comfortable bringing it because we are talking about such big cultural changes. I am not tying it.
Okay. My big concern is, I know what the light duty process is if I have a significant injury. I have no idea what the ADA process is. And so that's gonna be, I think, a hard thing to get through to our membership, something completely new. So is there any information you have that we can take forward?
I have policy.
Great.
I also have federal language.
I think part of the problem also is you're bringing, as you said, this huge cultural change. And if we go back to a ratification with such a massive cultural change, it's gonna be, I mean, pay is one thing, that's a huge cultural, we've always been captains are captains, now we're saying captain. Well, first year captain is not as valuable as it, and so these are huge changes. As long as sick leave change, all of this stuff you take back, it's kind of a thing that you inundate, and it's hard to ratify when there's so much on this. And so I think,
I take a little offense to something you just said, and I just want to get it out there because we've asked for better dialogue. I have never said a first-year captain
that's
is
not
not,
what-
but that's what you said.
What I'm saying is
Longevity pays
That's-
people more based on experience. It's the same thing with steps, so please be careful how
okay,
you
but
phrase
what
that.
I'm saying is there's the, okay, so I'm not saying you said that, our
I know, but
membership.
your membership already hates me, and now you've said that on the record that I'm saying a first-year captain isn't worth as much. So please just be careful in what you say, because it matters.
Okay, so then I would say, and on the flip side, our membership thinks you hate them. So it goes both ways due to the contentious negotiations we've had over many things. And so be careful what you say as well, because
Well, I
it goes
am.
both ways, okay? So I'm just trying to throw this out there. These huge changes. We have all this on the table. And it's just hard to get it all through, we've got this pay issue. We've got all these policy changes. We've got all this. And so I'm just trying to say this is a tough thing to get through all of this at once with this membership.
But the problem is pay is always the big issue, and it has to be, because that's why you work. We all might enjoy our jobs, but we're here because we need to make a living and provide for our lives and families. The problem is we never get to any of this stuff because we always want to talk about pay. So at what point do we handle this administrative things that doesn't make us good neighbors? I think the relationship is good, but we still have these boundary issues because we don't understand what's applicable. And it's also hard because it's a benefit that's not defined. So we're looking for guidelines and language to explain what it is for equity and to explain how we're spending taxpayer dollars. I don't think that that means I'm trying to get rid of employees, and I am happy to help with the ADA stuff. I didn't bring that because I brought a lot. And I mean, I'm not done. I still have piles of stuff we need to get through. But every time we push it off, it becomes a bigger issue next time, and it becomes more entrenched in our process. So by pushing it off, I understand this is a lot, but I feel we brought a very aggressive pay plan. I have not asked for a lot in that. I'm not saying this is tied. I'm saying there's a reason I'm bringing all of this at once. I'm trying to be equitable in the give and take. And I feel like right now, we're doing a good job, and I think we've had good progress, but I feel like we're stalling a little, because the only thing that I feel like this side of the table wants to hear is where's the pay plan? Where's the pay plan? But I have 20 things on the table we're ignoring. We haven't even got through them, or the language hasn't even been addressed. And I get you have full-time jobs on top of this, so do Jared and I. This is kind of, we all have this ad. But these are all just gonna die on the table. And that's my concern.
Our big thing that we've been talking about, it's not just so much that we want to see the pay, we're really concerned on just the amount of other articles in the contract that are going to be affected.
Oh,
by this
I've
pay
started
scale.
it. It's huge.
So, yeah.
It's like 7 pages right now.
And we're worried that just the amount of things, including the proposals that are already on the table, including just figuring out the basics and the simple questions we have about the pay scale today, plus all the articles that is going to have to, be talked about and negotiated. How long do we want this to stretch out? Because it's going to be we're just trying to get a good idea on the direction to go. It's not so much that we're just saying, no, let's put these off. It's just, it's hard for us to wrap our heads around what direction to go right now.
And that's a very valid point. And that's, again, why we're looking for basically a full CBA. It's going to look very different. I mean, I'm asking for job descriptions to be attached there. It's already gotten thicker. I mean, it just gets better because you build better policy. We can keep going through these. I can tell you before we propose anything new, we're going to want a caucus. So hopefully you can bring some language back so we can get a few of these off the table. But I just want to be upfront. I don't plan on presenting something new right now until we've had a caucus, and maybe you can bring back some language for us.
While we're on the light duty, just to help understand a little better, just like a what if, just because again, we don't understand the ADA application. If you had an employee who, say, injured their back, recreating, trying to stay fit and, enjoy their time off, they hurt their back, they can't do the job function, so they go on light duty. Maybe they need to have surgery to get it fixed. can't get scheduled for surgery for a couple months because, I mean, sometimes you
I
get
understand
in right away,
medical
sometimes.
professionals are not fast.
Yeah, so it takes time to get into surgery, and then recovery is, say 6 months on something like that, maybe longer. When that individual, if they're in a position to make a full recovery and come back to work, and they have 15 years left in their career, what happens to that individual when they run out of these 24 weeks? As far as maintaining a job and options for pay during that time, how does that work?
So after you exhaust your FMLA, which we are all familiar with that process, you would then go to the light duty, and then that would be as you operate now. After you exhaust those 12 weeks, we would sit down with a certification from your doctor. There's a form that we use that explains what you can and cannot do in your position. At that point, it still might be light duty. Or it might be this employee has so many restrictions, we cannot safely have them on the job. Or it can be for a year, because I've seen back surgeries that have a full year recovery after a 6-month window of nothing, like you do nothing. Then we would maybe look at a different job assignment for that year and then replacement back into their old job. It's completely individual. It has nothing to do with past practice. It has nothing to do with the fire department budget. It would just maintain, and it would be assessed based on the individual's doctor's notes that come back for the situation. ADA is one of the best federal protections that the feds have come up with. It
For
has
employees.
zero consideration for your coworkers or your budget.
So are there considerations then to guarantee that, say somebody was placed in city offices for a couple
Which it could be a
weeks or
reasonable
months,
accommodation.
are they guaranteed their job back once they recover?
We would assess that on the individual situation. If it's like it's a 2-year out, they might have to go back onto the list until we have an opening. We could assess it that way. The one thing about ADA is it doesn't care about how it impacts the people next to them. So if you went out for a year and you stepped into his role, you could be reverted back and you could be replaced. But again, it would come back off of what the physicians or your treating practitioner's notes say.
And then as far as like maybe placement in another part of the city, are there considerations for maintaining at least similar pay?
So it's based on what the restrictions are. Like I can't place Jared as a city attorney into my admin's role. He would be paid commensurate for the job that he's completing, but we would maintain fire benefits. That is the one part where you have separate benefits from us, we would be maintaining. ADA is hard because there are no cut and clear answers. It's such a strict policy for individual protection that it doesn't have any consideration for everything around it. We would solely focus on taking care of you. And it's a huge policy federally. Our blurb in the handbook is very small because it is so big.
I've got one question if you're.
Yep, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, let's say hypothetically an employee saves up a bunch of sick leave. Can they apply that at some point during this timeframe?
Once they exhaust their FMLA and they go on light duty, at that point, they could say, I just need some more time off. Again, we could address that through ADA. You still have 4 weeks of sick leave. Do you want to take that intermittently? Do you want to cut down to half days? If you can still do the light duty restriction, we wouldn't have to do that at all. But we would have to have stop gaps just to check in on the employee's progress.
But you could use your sick leave above and beyond this 12-week
Oh, yeah.
FMLA as well as the 12-week.
Before triggering ADA?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once you come off FMLA, if you don't have if you can't safely come back to work, you could then stay on sick leave. If you're taking the light duty restriction, you're now saying you're capable of doing some functions of work in the fire department. I think we would address that best through ADA, saying, I'm still going to take my 4 weeks of sick leave and then we'll see where I sit. And that would be fine as that time as well. It would just be a communication from the employee saying, I'm taking this time, so I don't need an accommodation at this point. And then once those 4 weeks were up and they either had a full release from their treating person, or we would reassess through the ADA process. It's an interactive process. It's not a one meeting thing. A lot of communication, it just opens up the communication paths, and it also gets some documentation letting us know, without a lot of details on your medical situation, what we can do to safely bring you to work. That's our biggest concern. Putting someone in the field before they're ready causes further injury and can put them on disability, and we do not want that. That ruins lives.
Could you touch back on if you got reassigned to a different city department? Let's say Adam, battalion chief, goes out, right, gets reassigned for a year. Scott promotes into his spot, Adam comes back, would he come back in the next battalion chief spot or the next firefighter rank?
So the interesting thing with ADA, I've never actually had to move people between departments.
Okay.
It's very rare, and it's kind of basically we're addressing a permanent restriction. If he has a restriction that permanently prohibits him from wearing
Yeah.
breathing thing,
Yeah.
then I can't put him back in the role, and that's when we would look at moving departments.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not we're gonna move you for 2 months and then you move back. That's like permanent restriction items. But I've never had to do it.
Okay.
We ready to move to the next fun topic?
I think so.
I think we've beaten this one. Next up is City Proposal 18, addressing Article 18, Section B. We are looking to build in the prorate we currently do for your HRA into language. And this is where we're requesting to move your payment date from the first payroll of the fiscal year to the second payroll of the calendar year. So we have uniform practice across the city, one of two. We chose the more beneficial to you.
We're close on this one.
19, you have a counter on the table, and then we have 20 and 20A. Do you have any questions on those?
I didn't number it. Is 20 the
20
final?
is the PowerPoint, and A is the one-page, quick and dirty summary with the 7 pages I have going of things that have to be changed.
20A?
A
Okay.
for the one page.
Thank you.
I don't think
I know, it's a lot.
we have questions. Is there anything that you guys want to address right now?
We've got a few items that we want to talk about. I don't know if right now is the best time. We were kind of hoping to see a full picture of the day staff as well as the job descriptions before we
So I have
get into that.
other items I have to get through before I have those. I kind of tried to lump them together so they kind of hook in together. If you have questions pertaining to 20 or 20A, I think we can take those now. Otherwise, I'm happy to hand over the job descriptions and then go into caucus.
So I think some of our questions were in regards to how people, some not all people were slotted into the plan.
Okay.
See, Scott, I think, had the information for that. Do you want to talk about some of your concerns, or?
Yeah, and I don't know if we can talk about it right now in detail. We're just kind of trying to figure out which direction to go with the pay plan and where we need to start, I guess, working on the details of it.
No,
Because we
it's
do
hard.
have some small discrepancies on where we think people should be slotted versus what was in the file. And I know you said there could
I'm
be
working
errors and
from a
stuff
date in
it,
like
and
March. So
Yeah,
there
and-
will be adjustments. If we're close, I'll replace everybody.
I think we're
But
relatively
pull the
close on
file
most
is-
people, but we just wanted to, see what the conversation would look like going forward with that. If that's something we want to hammer out every single little detail here at the table, or if there's some other.
I think if we can
avenue
kind of
to-
talk on the broad strokes and then narrow down on the detail. So the broad strokes is kind of just that 20A, the outline. Are there items in there that are concerning that we can address, that we can have a good conversation on? Because once we get into the details, I'm gonna now start pulling up PowerPoints, and we're gonna have to sit all together, and I'm gonna have to walk you through how everything worked, and then I'll have to pull a clean file to update everybody to where they currently stand. Because you'll notice when I handed you letters, you had vacants. You don't
Yes.
have any vacants.
Yeah.
But that's what I had when I built the file.
So maybe one of the broad strokes that we could address is the fire marshal position. In talking, I've talked to Curtis about, how it used to be 30 years ago, and they used to have that spot. And then talking to the guy that's in the position right now and his boss, Nick, is this something that you guys are dead set on?
I guess I'd rather have a conversation to understand the concerns rather
Okay,
than just
sure.
having an opinion.
Sure. I think some of the big concerns with that are, right now, we know that spot is going to get filled. It's not going to be vacant. One of our concerns with the way that it's kind of written in right now is that it could potentially be vacant, and then we would be relying on somebody from somewhere else to fill it. And we feel like that's a really important position for the department
It is.
itself. He does a really important job. And so we feel it's beneficial to have somebody doing that job all the time rather than potentially leaving it empty. And right now, the way that it is, we know that it's going to be filled. We're okay with it having a job description that reflects what that position actually does. And I think, and as that title as well. But the way that it gets filled right now, we think is a pretty efficient way.
Hold on, I'm looking for language because I don't have it memorized. So it's a hard one, and we've struggled, and that's why the language is so, I'm talking about a massive overhaul, and it's a bullet point. Somewhere in here, it talks about it. Page 22, line 726, the fire inspector day position. Do you want me to pop it up on the screen? Would that help?
Sure.
Ken, can I pop stuff up?
What line did you say that was?
726. Sorry, this might be easier if we're all looking at it.
Your adapter?
No. Yes. 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 Right here. I have one.
Oh, right, it's the other adapter.
I don't have the network.
Could be
At my screen.
Where is that actual?
There you go.
Oh, now I can't. Oh, this sucks. Now I can't see anything. All right.
You get to drive from there.
I'd get a drive from, I don't even know how to do this. I have to do it up here. Oh, I didn't found my mouse. Kim, this is not working. Okay, that's as, there we go. This might be as good as I can get it, I'm sorry. That's all I can do.
There we go.
So here it says if the position, okay. If no current bargaining member applies for the position, the chief may fill the position at his discretion, either from the civil service list or by open applications. What we're proposing is just better language by saying a lateral could come in, because this still says open applications, which in my mind means an outside person.
So this position is
Is this the
actually.
civilian?
This is what April Wheeler
This is
does.
April.
Yes. So if you're looking for the language
So that's-
around,
That's, okay, hold on, because I'm
The-
gonna have to try and search, and I gotta find my mouse.
I've got it right here.
Okay, which line is it?
The section starts at 560 under promotions.
You can't search by line number, because it's not text. So we're struggling with how many places. Did I pass it? Nope. Here.
So right down there, I think Where's it at?
You decline the position. In that event, the promotion will be offered to the next candidate. So what if no one accepts?
Never happened.
People have always accepted.
Well, then we can easily remove the lateral language. We're not tied to that. We were just trying to make it easier.
Sure.
And if that's I'm not dying on that hill.
The way that it's been is there's always somebody that fills that position.
And that, I'm not aware of any lateral we've ever had from outside. So,
Yeah.
and I flat out said, this is weird. I don't know if we want to bring this. But we wanted to, in case we needed it. If that's an issue, we can just scratch that line right off. That is not a big deal for us.
Okay. So then I think on the pay plan, it was a different rank.
It's a different pay grade because it has a different job
Okay.
description.
So the one that Dean is currently in right now,
Is the one at the bottom.
the day's captain. So that would just, so we would remove the fire marshal line and that would just stay the pay
So
scale.
we're talking two different pieces. I'm talking about into the rank. You're now talking about the ranks.
Correct.
So are you saying you don't want a fire marshal rank
I'm okay with calling it a fire marshal.
as a title?
As a title,
Okay.
as long as it retains the day captain spot.
Okay.
Because we already have those captains, we already have enough captains that one can fill that position.
So that would be 16 captains with one as a fire marshal.
Correct, yeah.
So then how do you want to handle pay for that position?
I think it should probably stay the same pay as a captain.
The pay
Well,
scale
so-
that's listed here is,
The problem is, are
That's
you
pretty well.
talking the hourly or the annual?
The hourly, right?
Okay, so if you go hourly.
The annual.
Because if you go hourly, it's a $20,000 pay cut.
Okay, it would be the annual pay. So it's still a captain rank position, the pay is still similar to captain.
I have some questions, and it's not that I disagree, it's just I want to understand.
Okay,
So a couple years ago when we were in Paradise, bear with me because I have a weird memory. I was sitting looking at the door and Eric was sitting to my right. Congratulations, you're the topic of my conversation. And Eric brought up that he didn't feel like we valued the difference in your schedule at a 2912 to the 2080 that everyone else works. And I've tried to really think about that when I build things. So my question to you is, for equity, should someone working 900 hours less than their captain counterpart be making the same wage? And I don't know the answer to that, and that's why I'm asking. And that's why I split it off as a separate rank. And I just want to be fair, and I've tried to be very understanding of these differences, and I just keep going back, because it was very profound what Eric said to me. And I've really tried to consider that as I write things. And I guess I don't see equity in someone working almost 1,000 hours less, not away from their families, 1,000 hours less making the same. So that's why I split it off as the separate rank, making like $3,000 less a year. It still gives it high value, but it didn't feel like an apple to apple. And I didn't want to come off as insensitive by keeping it at the same pay rate. Sorry, it's just, I've really tried to be considerate of that. So this is a discussion I knew would happen and I knew it would be awkward.
yeah,
I think we could get a better understanding, maybe once we see the full job description of how that lines out.
So these took a lot to get to this point, and they seem long because the physical requirements for your position are massive. Just the breathing app, CBAs, is what they're called? That has to have language. We also added a new section on common equipment use. So people applying or promoting, you obviously know it, but new people to the department learning. We've also added some language on how this position differs from others. Specifically to the paramedic lieutenant, we built that language in to understand how it is different than like a firefighter with paramedic. So I'm happy to hand those over. It's a big read. Like, I'm sorry, it's a big read. I do not have a job description for the day's captain because it is essentially the same thing as the marshal. So titling is something we can easily adjust, but I'm happy to hand those over as 20B. Do you want these now?
we'll take if they're a bit ready, yeah, take it.
So 20B.
You have your copy?
Yep. So you're getting one for each job. We have firefighter, engineer, paramedic lieutenant, fire marshal, captain, and battalion chief. So as you go through it, at the very top, it's gonna tell you the title, which is the rank. And then underneath it, if there are differential pay grades, it's for the ARF and the paramedic stipend. So still the same job description, there'll just be additional little boxes that explain those differences. But I don't honestly know the right answer on fire marshal. I just, that 900 hours just weighs on me because I feel like it was a very valid point. So I wanted to make sure we were acknowledging it. Sorry, more reading. And it's not thrilling reading.
Well, with the fire marshal, I think, I mean, if it doesn't, if it's not a real sticking point going forward, I think our feeling is that we'd like to take the days captain grade that you have listed on the scale here, plot it in where it says fire marshal as it fits, as it's shown on the days captain grade. And we can rename the days captain to code enforcement captain, or we could call him fire marshal captain, or whatever we need to do, and have a job description that reflects it. But I think that's kind of where we're leaning.
And I think kind of around, sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
To kind of stay around the theme of pay for pay. It could be potentially a sacrifice for somebody to move into this position because they're going to have to change the way that their day-to-day life functions outside of work because you're now going from a different schedule to the day schedule. So we don't necessarily want it to have a huge impact on the people that move into that position, and we want to make sure that they're being taken care of pay-wise similarly. So
So I wouldn't be comfortable just slotting the day's captain rate of pay into the marshal. I'd like to have a further discussion on that once you guys have a chance to look at the job descriptions.
Okay.
Just so I make sure I can understand
sure.
rather than just a placement.
Okay.
I'm more okay with keeping the annual. It's that extra 9.2% that causes me heartburn.
Okay. Keeping the annual.
Equitable, but I have an issue with that. I need understanding of that 9.2%.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I need educated. Eric, put it on your list.
I can tell you why it's 9.24. So what that was is to make up for the holiday pay that the shift captains get, as well as the FLSA pay. So what it was is if you went to a day captain slot, you would remain annual the same as a shift captain. So that's where that 9.24 came from, up for the holiday and the FLSA.
But aren't they getting holiday hours?
They get holiday hours, but their pay remains the same. And so when we got rid of the fire marshal, nobody wanted to go to the fire marshal. Nobody just wanted. It was a dead end position. Nobody wanted. Once you went there, you're stuck.
Okay.
And so nobody would go into it. And that's why we moved to the captains, because there is movement. You would go into it for a period of time, you come back out on shift. And so we wanted to make those pay for pay. We understand they're getting their time off. However, overall gross, they wanted to remain as close as possible.
And
It's a little bit more to be a day captain right now, I think, with the 9.24, because FLSA is not guaranteed, some other things. But it was to remain those pay parity for captain to captain, is what it was.
And that makes sense. I would be a little bit more comfortable if we were talking annual base, because they shouldn't, in my opinion, be getting the benefit of holiday hours and holiday pay. I feel like that's kind of an overpayment for that function. I also would want to talk about the 9.2. Again, like I said, I'm good matching annual. Their hourly rate goes up, but their base hours when you get at the end of the year is the same. I guess I just think there's some benefits to being on the 48.96 as well as some hindrances, then there should be a discrepancy between those two rates. But I will definitely sit and do some analysis on the numbers. I'm happy to look at those again.
Okay. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay.
Yes.
Good.
Do you have data on maybe the past 10, 15 years of the amount of people that have been on light duty and what timeline?
Again,
She said.
we don't always know when you're on light duty because it's not being logged or tracked anywhere. We have some, but not bread you're looking for.
Sorry, I must have.
No, there's been a lot of conversation. We've talked more today than we have in the other meetings. All right, well, I think we'll go into caucus now.
Okay,
Let us know when you're ready to come back.
okay, thank you.
Good morning, we're back and it's 11:47. There's a new person at the city table. If you could introduce yourself for the record.
Matt Curbs, Deputy City Attorney.
Welcome.
Welcome. All right, where do we want to start?
Okay, so we went back, we worked on some stuff. The clean contract, we're gonna go ahead and TA the clean contract.
Do you know, so I have it open and I can't delete all of that appendix of the previous contract, so it's huge. I have one.
What do you need? Never mind, that
Did
one's
you
fine.
want it paper clipped when I give it to you?
This blue?
I got it.
And then while you're grabbing them, was it the prescription drug? Yeah. Yeah, we'll TL that one, TA that one as well.
Okay.
Correct.
16. My binder, maybe move out of a 4-inch binder now.
All right. We have this is not a proposal on my notes. We have a counter proposal for the bilingual. Okay. Jordan, need to copy that, sure, just in case. So on this one, we just eliminated full-time city employees and just put employees. Under section B, number 1, we said make reasonable efforts to be available when required to use their skill. And then on number 3 of that same section, we put subject to callback because that's how we do things on that. And I believe those are the only changes that we made.
So just to confirm,
This one.
because that's Article 12, Section C, right? The callback?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I have some new and I have some counters. Where would you like to start?
We actually have
Oh,
one more.
one more, okay.
One more.
One more.
So we have a counter proposal to the sick leave. I think it was 13.
Yes.
We made quite a few changes, so we'll just let you digest that one. Might take
Okay.
you a bit on that one. If there's anything blaring at you right now, we can answer some questions on that.
So are your changes in blue?
They are, yes, in blue.
Okay, can you walk me through them real quick?
Yes, so
The strike-throughs are still in red.
the strike-throughs are still in red. However, I think our strike-throughs are single line strike-through instead of the double line strike-through.
Okay,
So the first one would be eliminating the first paragraph. And then we added the discipline policy to the next paragraph after that.
Okay.
We changed the accrual numbers to 7.39 and 4.93.
Can I ask where you came up with that shift
Um,
and increase?
That was 1.5.
So that is, we currently have 6 days accrued, 6 24-hour shifts accrued per year.
Okay.
So that ups it to 8. And our day staff have 12 8-hour days accrued per year.
So
and that
you
ups it
just
to
upped it by
16.
days and that's
Yeah.
how it came out. Proud.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep.
Just so I know when I
Yep.
try to figure out what we did.
Sure. Changed some language under the personal illness clause to maybe, and 2 consecutive shifts. We added that just to reflect the, where was that
I
at?
think it's down
Well,
below.
we removed it on the previous page,
We just,
but it was still
yeah,
2
we
shifts.
just wanted to cover our shift personnel as well as the day personnel for that. Sorry, we eliminated some stuff above that.
That's fine.
There in this, in the strike through. We added illness to section 3 under accrued sick leave may be used to attend immediate family members.
So I do have
Illness.
concerns over that.
Okay,
Simply because the definition of immediate family member, there is a legal definition of it that we need to apply. Like
Okay.
a live-in partner who's not,
it's not common law.
is not considered immediate family.
Okay,
And that's the one hiccup we always run into.
okay. Understood on there. We added section, or 5th part of that, the emergency, a sudden and unanticipated event that will not be caused by, I'll let you read it, because apparently I can't read it. But we added that part in there.
So I have concern over, to mitigate human life, again, how are we defining who those humans are? And then why is property included in sick leave?
So I think one of the things that we talked about is, we're at work for 48 hours. If we have something come up at home,
Our sewer's backing
like your
up.
sewer's backing
Roof is
up, or you
leaking.
got a water pipe that breaks that is potentially going to destroy your house or cause you significant damage, we can't necessarily leave work if vacation time is full. So we wanted to just make sure that,
So my only concern is, and it's because I've been fighting this battle for 8 years, we're now blending the purposes of sick leave with time off for non-sick relief related things. And then people start saying the word, the evil word, what's the combined? Personal leave. That pushes sick leave towards more of a personal leave category, and I don't think that's any of our intentions.
okay, do you have a suggestion for what we could do as individuals so that our house doesn't get destroyed?
I'm
or-
gonna have to ponder on that one, because it definitely is not fit under sick
Yeah,
leave.
we just kind of fall under a
I know,
different
it's weird.
circumstance because, a normal employee, that maybe they have 2 hours of work left and then they can go home and deal with it, or you understand what I'm saying? Like, we don't have
I
that.
just don't think this is the right place to put it.
If there's another place to do that,
I
that
don't
is-
know, so
that
I'll
is
have
just
to
something that
review.
we must consider. We have to have some
I
emergent
understand.
leave option.
I really feel like we're blending pools here, and I don't think that has ramifications any of us want.
If you can come up with
Okay.
something different, then, we'd definitely be open to that. But we just want to make sure that,
No, that's,
We're
we haven't
covering
talked
that
about that
basis.
before, so that's a good thing to add to,
And those are, of course, very
Hopper.
rare
Oh, yeah.
circumstances, but when they happen.
I hope so.
it-
That seems so rare in my house.
I know, right? The most expensive thing you can do is own a home.
some other changes, we eliminated some stuff out of section F and added sick time in for donation. Eliminated period or event. I think that
So
was-
you wanna be able to donate time to someone not on FMLA? Because that's what that strike just
Yes.
did.
Yeah,
Okay, so that's gonna be a deal breaker for our side, just so you know.
okay,
I just wanna be upfront, clear with that one.
okay.
Would you mind explaining why?
Because we have very generous leave pools right now, what you can accrue. We also have above standard accruals for most places, not every place. Again, it just continues to draw out an employment with no constraints around timeframes or situations or equity. So that's why FMLA is in place on those things. And we also do not require a leave pool. Most places that allow donated time, you have to donate so many hours into the pool to be eligible to utilize it. And we don't do that.
We eliminated temporary variable hours seasonal employees because they're not bargained for.
Not under your CBA, that's right.
Under section G, under the buyout section, we changed the 40% to 50%. We feel like this is a good way to help our members save their sick time.
Okay.
Change some stuff under eligibility. We kind of eliminated those qualifiers under that.
We can't. That's federal policy. Those are the constraints we have to have in policy around FMLA, those 3 bullet points. Just so you know. Same thing with the airline flight crews.
But do we need that language in the proposal to?
If we're
Covering
pulling
airline.
FMLA in, then I need it to match what the approved for us at a state and federal level matches. Because right now we're applying the handbook and that language exists. I need it to continue to exist just so we can show we're in full compliance. Not that we're ever gonna run or own an airline, but we have got dinged for it before in some of our employee contract stuff. I know, trust me, I took it out too.
Okay. We changed that first section under section B,
Okay,
eliminated the last sentence under that clause there, or under that.
so can I just ask a question under that first change you made in section B? You're saying after someone exhausts all leave, then they would go on to FMLA?
Yes.
Okay,
That,
just
we
making
also
sure I
feel like that
understand.
is a good way to encourage people to save their sick. You may never need those accruals, but it's a good fallback if you ever have something that happens.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
We changed kind of a little bit of the definition, not really under the serious health condition. We added but not limited to, just because maybe there are other things that fall underneath that
Okay.
definition. And then under that, a couple sentences down, we added is not an exhaustive list on that list. Then a couple of pages after that, under intermittent leave, we added newborn child or newly adopted child under that first paragraph right there and eliminated the paragraph underneath that. And then under section H, eligible spouses who work for the city, we added are each separately entitled to.
Again,
A
that's
total
gonna
of-
be a deal breaker for us. That's federal standard.
That's the federal law. Okay.
It's weird. It's the only part of FMLA that applies there is around the birth of a child.
Is that the minimum requirement, or is that it is this and only this?
That is the federal standard we apply.
And so you
That's how the
said,
feds have written it.
okay. So this just covers birth of a child and a parent with a serious health
Correct.
condition.
They still are entitled to their 12 weeks for their individual situations.
This is an additional,
No, but if like two spouses went out over birth of a child, it's 12 weeks for the two of them combined, regardless of how you split that out. But if I went out for 12 weeks and then my husband went out for 12 weeks on surgery, those are separate.
okay.
But it isn't, that's 12 weeks total for the year. It's not per item.
Okay, so that 12 weeks is gonna count towards their personal as well.
Yes, you only get 12 weeks, period, regardless of how many FMLA situations you have.
Okay.
And just to be clear, so the law is written to limit any additional benefit in regard to that.
So it's it's, for us, we're saying a 12-week allotment, regardless, I'm not getting into hours. I get 12 weeks. If I have 3 instances through the year, I still only have 12 weeks of FMLA.
Right.
Yes,
I guess I'm just trying to clarify, this is not, the requirement that it be a shared 12 weeks.
That is federal.
Not that it is in fact the only option under federal law.
Yes.
And not just a preference of how
Correct.
it's applied here. Okay.
that is not our preference.
And that is it.
Okay,
Okay, I think, I just wanted to reiterate that we're trying to work through the stuff that you've given us. Our bandwidth is so much. I mean, we're simple guys, so we're trying to get through what you've given us. But yeah, just wanted to reiterate that. We only have so much bandwidth, and we're trying to utilize it to the peak max, so.
do you have any questions?
I don't.
Okay, so a lot of language we'll want to sit down and look at. So the next time we meet, we'll come back with discussion on those. Let's see. Any questions on the job descriptions, of which there's a massive amount of reading I just threw at you?
We honestly haven't even got.
I'm just
to it
making
yet.
sure you all had them. Okay, check. I handed them out. There covers it. So in my research, I ended up with a change, let me hand that to them, that we need to make to, this will be the city's 21. MERP is now the IAFF MERP. We need to adjust that language. Our proposal 21 only addresses the name change at the bottom under notes. It is not addressing the amount of the MERP. It is the name of the MERP we need to correct. Because I understand that changed in 22 or 23.
Just TA this one. Yeah. We'll just TA this one. That one's pretty easy. Want me to do it on, can I just do it on this one?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm gonna let Marisa get a few TA numbers written on there so we don't get out of order.
Very good.
This one first.
You good? So next up is city proposal 22. And this is the one we talked about opening time frame. June 1st is written in Article 26, 27, not in Article 36, which is where we were all looking. So 27. We were hoping to move the subsequent contract language into Article 36 and call it procedural agreement and subsequent contracts, just so all of that information is included in one space. We've also put titles on the subheadings. We've removed from paragraphs to sections to match the rest of the CBA. And we added language under C, moving us from June 1st to March 15th. And then I moved some of the language around under subsequent contracts so it fits within the procedural agreement article. So there's going to just be reading and comparison time for you needed there.
So along with the date, the March 1st date. In some of my talks with city council members, it seems like they don't necessarily want us to go too early because they're in the, they don't have any numbers or anything like that. Is that been any of your conversations with them?
So
As far as,
City
does
coun-
this date work for them?
City council, we have had executive session to discuss our proposals, and that's what we're bringing to the table.
Okay.
The council's seen a lot of me these days.
Sure.
We're all tired of meeting.
We just want to make sure that that is
Yep,
something that
we
works
have
for
talked
them.
with
and-
council.
Okay. All right. Guys, have any other questions on this one? Okay.
23 is a weird little tie-in to our change. It kind of addressed how we would handle staffing levels and the ambulance contract, because I said we would bring language in this meeting on how we thought that might look. We needed to get something on the table so that it's there, because this is our third meeting and it is the deadline. So we added, in addition, all paramedic stipends will be immediately discontinued and employees will be returned to their original rank, maintaining step placement. The 3 lieutenant positions will be eliminated and layoffs will occur pursuant to Article 24. That's tying into the ambulance contract and if we were to lose that with the county. It's been touched on, but not a specific point of conversation. So we wanted to make sure we had that on the table.
Okay.
Before we went into caucus, when we were talking about the light or limited duty article, you asked about ADA language. We have already handed over ADA language in proposal 10, so we have addressed that in the contract already. Okay, the next one, my copier was smarter than me, so it's stapled weird. This is City Proposal 24, and this is addressing base pay for firefighting staff. This is a 4-year proposal. Year 1 would be placement on the scale and no market adjustment. 26, 27, and 28, there would be 1 step for employees not at max. And then increases over those 3 years, we're doing 1, 1.5, and 2 to the table. Right now, average placement on the table is about a 3.5, so most employees will be seeing at least a 2.5% step next year on average. And by next year, I'm talking 26 because we're currently straddling 2 years. I've also included what would be struck in schedules currently and added the pay tables for 25, 26, and 25, 26, 27, and 28. Those tables have been converted to the simple math rather than the long formulas we talked about. So those would stand as the actual pay tables. I know it's a big adjustment moving from longevity to a step and grade table when you look at market adjustments, so I know that's gonna take some time to process through. I forgot a counter. I forgot my counter, so I'm gonna move to it next. Somewhere. So this is our counter 2 to your counter 4 on the medical plan.
Okay.
So our changes remain in yellow. Wait till you get those all handed out. So we left our premiums at the 6.24% of the paid, not the actual. We added in the language on compliance with that Idaho Code 188901 because we're not quite sure how that looks. We're still kind of trying to get a handle on it as well. We looked at your, we did strike language under Section A because the CBA does not control from people outside the union, so we took that sentence out. And we did add a Section B that we could do, that we would do a $75 employee mandatory contribution. We would be willing to pull that out and remit to MERP.
You say that again, I didn't understand.
So under the new MERP plan, the rules, as I was reading the ones I found updated for 23, Employees can have a mandatory contribution, but it has to be the bargaining unit or defined divisions within the bargaining unit that the employees can contribute. So the city would do the payroll deduction from paychecks and do that contribution. Just the processing side.
Got one question on this one. One of the elements of our proposal was that the city would do a payroll deduction for premiums that were over the amount here. And I don't see it here. Was that?
The city is not taking on administration in this proposal, no.
Have any more questions on this one? Okay.
I have one more, but let me get everything in my binder so I don't get it out of order. And last up is city proposal number 25, addressing civilian pay. So as we collapse longevity for the fire department and fighters, and move to a step and grade table, we've done the same thing for civilian positions. We did placement on the city scale. This shows you their current grades, their current base with longevity and with grade. And then we propose city placement. So we did have a bullet point at the bottom of the table that addresses if you have an employee at max. What we would do is we would take what we're applying to the firefighter table, and they would receive that as an add-on to their hourly base pay based on the percentage. So I used an example of this year's numbers of the 3.5, and it walks you through how much that employee would receiving per paycheck so that they still were insured a raise.
Okay, so just for my clarification, over here on the right-hand side, you have city max, or city minimum, city max. There are steps.
Their steps,
in
12
there,
steps.
12 steps in there.
Yep.
Okay. Do you have what that looks like?
Do you want me to pop it up? Or do you just want me to tell you where to find it?
Tell me where to find it.
So if you go to the city webpage under departments, HR, compensation, general scale.
Okay, and that's the G.
Yep, that's
on
the
there.
G.
Okay.
And I'm sorry I handed you more stuff to read.
Just have any further questions?
I just have, just on the, so if you look at the medical billing specialist, their current, is this what they're currently getting, 26.17 an hour?
That's with that employee's individual longevity.
So we're gonna place them at 23.69?
I think I have an error on that one.
So
I
that'd be a
corrected
$3
it.
an hour decrease?
It's not a decrease. It's one or either the step or the rate of pay is wrong, but everyone's receiving a raise. Let me pull up my spreadsheet. It's hard to run 7 scales, so let me see where I made the typo, but that's a good catch. Thank you. Because we did ensure everyone received a raise. No. Okay. I have it here. Let me see. So I'll amend that as we sit here once I find it. Please. It's $26.69 is the current rate of pay that they're placed at. So that is a typo from the 3 to the 6. And I'm happy to initial that if you'd like.
What was the number again? Could you say that? Sorry.
$26.69.
A movement of these members onto the city's general pay scale would subject them to table increases that are done to that table in the
Correct.
future.
Yes. So any adjustments,
Not anything we agree on.
only if they're at max, would then we revert back to the fire table percentage.
Would their steps be guaranteed?
Yes, we would build that into the CBA. The city scale is a little different than your scale in the fact that there are 2 additional steps on the scale that have special criteria to meet. We're currently in the process of defining those. Not a lot of people are going to reach them, but if they do have special qualifications or items that would push them, because they are big percentages, we would build criteria for these positions as well for those. Just when you look at the scale, you're going to go, Heather, there's more than 12 steps. Well, there's 12 set steps, and then there's 2 bonus steps that we're still defining.
So the bonus steps are over and above the 12.
They are. And it takes special criteria for each job description that will be written into each job description to achieve those.
And that's not currently built into this minimum and maximum?
No. So when you look at the scale, my max is going to be at 12, not at those incentive steps. Just so when you look at it, you understand what we did. So there's a lot. I just handed as much as I handed earlier. I don't see a reason we would need to meet on Tuesday. I don't think that you'll have a chance to go through all of this before that meeting. Are you in agreement?
Yeah.
So I will cancel the meeting for Tuesday, and I'll touch base with Jordan early next week about scheduling our next dates after next Friday.
Okay. After next Friday?
Well, a date
Starting next
after
Friday.
Friday, because we are scheduled for next Friday.
We are.
Yes. So we'll hopefully have some more dates at the next meeting that we can get slotted in.
Okay. Do we want to
Is that it for today?
go to lunch, or do you want to caucus? And
I don't know if you guys want to caucus and come back, or how you'd like to move forward.
I think we should leave it open. Possibly to come back.
Yeah, let's leave it
Take a
open
lunch,
for a little bit. We're gonna take
Okay.
lunch. We'll leave
Sounds
it
good.
open and come back, and I'll let you know.
Okay.
And then before we go, this FY25 rate of pay, no table adjustment.
Yeah, because I haven't brought a table adjustment before council yet. Right now, that's what the table looks like unless we make a change.
Okay, do you have any recommendations to council on what that table adjustment will look like?
Nope, because I don't know how much I'm spending on everything else we're talking about.
Okay.
I think Gene went over the 3% levy is like $950,000. We've well spent that, so I don't have numbers at this time.
And then are you proposing then that these members would be slot in at the proposed steps prior to any adjustment that happens,
So
that may happen during the budgeting process?
they would be placed on the table, and then a market adjustment automatically moves everyone up by the table percentage.
Okay, so placement, then adjustment?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
That's how we do, all placements happen before any adjustments, so you understand where you were and how we got you there before we add another percentage on top of it. It's harder for tracking purposes for employees, so we normally operate that way. All right, well, we'll see you guys in a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, we're back and it's 2:17. Before we get started, I would like to submit a revision of our 25 to correct that typo from the 3 to the 6, just so you have a clean one. My skills are going down now. Highlighted the little change in pink so you could see what I did. And then we have a counter to your counter 6 on bilingual.
Okay.
We adopted the callback language, so it's appropriately matching the CBA. We did, however, take out the sentence you had, the wording you had added and put it at the discretion of the fire chief for the, when available. I gave you one of these, right? Yes.
We have one, do you have anything else? Okay. We have one final proposal. So this has to do with Article 28 under Health and Safety. One change under Section G there, we change it to medical certification.
Okay.
And under Section H, the physical agility test, the original intent of this was to determine the test. The committee would decide on the test, and then it would be decided on between the union and the city.
Okay.
That was the original intent, so we are just changing the language to reflect that in that section. And then we have changed the language, or eliminated the language underneath that, and individuals who are able to complete the specified standards of the test would be awarded an additional 24 hours of vacation, making the test an option. Very similar to what the police have for their fit for duty standard.
So this removes the physical fitness standard for active firefighters,
It incentivizes it.
but there's no longer a standard. It's now an incentive. It's a
Correct.
carrot, not a stick.
That is correct.
I'm obviously going to need a fire chief on this one. So I'm not going to be able to give you much feedback on this today.
That's totally fine. That will be our.
Your fifth.
Proposal.
It would have been a counter.
It would have been that'd have been your counter.
Correct. So this
is
will
your
be the
fifth
fifth.
original.
Yes.
Heather, I have a question about the counter that you just gave us.
On bilingual.
Yes.
Okay.
If I'm wrong, there are some cases where there was 27 paychecks in a year. Would that we would just get paid per the paycheck, the annual would not be the cap? Okay.
27-1-1, the next year shorter, so it all evens out.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that.
Yeah, we all hate the 27 pay period years. It's an accounting nightmare.
25?
If the pay periods hit just right, there's, budget-wise, it balances. It's just impossible to write policy around.
Yeah, it's 27. Happens Very rarely.
Like a blue moon, very rarely. But yeah, we would just continue to pay it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good, if you can find a way to write language for me, I'd love it. I'll use it everywhere I go. Okay, so I'm gonna have questions on this. Unfortunately, I'm not the right person to ask those. So I will need to talk to my team and then I'll get back to you next Friday on this one.
Okay.
So we've had a lot of discussion today. We've had a lot of things that we have to think about. We've canceled our meeting on Tuesday, so we have the week to think about them. A couple of things we just wanted to clarify and bring to light. Our bundle deal for the health insurance counter proposal, we just want to clarify that that was denied as a bundle.
Your
And-
counter?
Yes.
Correct.
And so all of the proposals that were attached to that one will now be back on the
So
table.
you're 3 and 4.
Yep,
Okay.
okay. Just to,
Oh, sorry, can I ask a clarifying
yes,
question there?
yes.
So we both have counter proposals on the table. I have one and you have one. Are you pulling yours back or are you saying mine's superseding yours
Which counter proposal?
on the medical?
Well, our counter proposal is designed as a package deal, and so if you strip elements away, it's no longer.
Well, we can still both have a counter on the table, right? Like we both have a bilingual on the table and we could TA either one. Are you rolling
Oh.
it back completely? Or are you just saying you're considering ours, but you also want your 3 and 4 active? Just so I understand what I need to prep.
We can leave their counter for consideration, but I think our 3 and 4 are on the table still.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm looking at the right things over the next week.
And then just to kind of address the health insurance issue, we feel like 8% is a pretty reasonable number. You know, the city would be more than amicable to an insurance plan that would guarantee an 8% raise over the course of a contract if there were such a thing. So we feel like we're in the ballpark with our 8% on that proposal. Just wanted to air that out. And then Scott, do you want to?
Yeah, just to put out there, so with the proposed pay scale and the initially applied placements from the city, and looking at the
Just
proposed,
for
Yes.
fire or for civilian?
for fire.
Thank you.
Yes. And looking at your proposed market adjustments of 0% for FY '25, I just want to get a little bit of, I guess, information out there for everybody that's listening. Just some rough calculations. If you go back and look at what the Western CPI has been since our current contract went into place up till April of this year, it's gone up 13.9%, roughly. We can all assume that it's going to go up another little bit by October, right?
Okay.
During the course of our current contract, our wages have gone up 9.3%, roughly. So with that alone, we have actually fallen behind about 4.5% from where we were as far as purchasing power or, due to inflation, 4.5% behind where we were 3 years ago.
And are you, when you're using your percentage, just so I understand, are you doing table adjustments only, or are you also taking into account longevity movements?
I'm not talking about table adjustments at all. I'm just talking about the situation that we're all in right now, as far as what our current wages are versus inflation.
Okay,
So-
so you said current inflation since we started on Western CPI is 9.3.
Current inflation, Western CPI, CPI-U, since our current contract went into place up till April of this year, is about 13.9%.
13.9.
Our
Okay,
wages on our last contract went up 9.3%
and that's the
with
table adjustments in the current contract,
in the current contract.
but not longevity movements.
No.
Okay, just making sure I'm
Just-
apple and
just the-
apple.
Just the base wage increases. And that's the compounded amount, the 9.3. So that puts us about 4.5% behind inflation alone. And the plan that you proposed, it looks like it has about an average of 2.2% increases across the board, but that includes a few, 5 particular members who are going to get a big bump for their medic license. And so if you look at it as more of a median, we're looking at about 1.4% at the 50th percentile, so right in the middle. And in fact, the 80th percentile is about 2.2. So most of our members are looking at about a 2, maybe a 2.2 on your proposed plan, which with a 0% on the scale doesn't even catch us up to inflation. And so that's something that we are going to have to address in the next couple of sessions here. But we just want to make sure that that's out there and that perspective is known to everybody. And so that's where we're coming from. And I don't know if you have any different perspective on that, if there's a different way to look at it. I do realize, though, that the plan, the steps, in the long-term view are definitely a good thing for the city and the department. But when we're looking at what happens here and now, this fall, this isn't going to get people where they need to be to even catch up to where they were 3 years ago.
And I completely understand, and we do talk about CPI as a metric, and we can never levy what it matches. I can tell you the first year going on a table's rough. It's rough for everybody. The placement on the table for your civilian and your firefighters is about $210,000. That's a big chunk for us to eat in the first year, knowing that next year your average step is going to be probably 2.75 to 2.5 based on people's placement, and I'm going to add that to a table percentage. You're now pushing 3%, which is what I can levy. But I also have medical going up. I have your your day staff going up. All of those costs keep going up, and I love to be able to use CPI. Unfortunately, the state of Idaho's taxing function does not match it. So even if CPI goes up, that does not mean that I can even legally levy it in the ambulance or the city budget to cover those numbers. And I get that, and everyone's in that role, and I feel awful that the money's not there. It's just, we only have so much we can levy and apply. And that even includes foregone.
I guess, we've sat in this room and talked about had that conversation many times, but I don't know if we've ever put out on the table what that pot of money actually is. Are you able to share that? Like what?
Well, I can pull up Jean's presentation to show you what the general fund can levy.
And show us how that applies to the fire budget?
Well, so there's multiple parts here. So I can show you fire's budget. I can show you in comparison to the general fund. The city itself is not a comp because we have enterprise funds that can't be used for tax purposes, and all of us in this room are a tax purpose, or the ambulance is kind of a quasi-enterprise fund. I can show you how it compares to the general fund, but that doesn't take into account operating, which I also then have to pull in, and I have to pull in capital. So I have to show you the full function of the fire budget, not just the personnel side. That's public information. It's easily accessible.
Sure, okay.
It's a really long-winded presentation, but I'm happy to drag it forward. Now I'm going to talk at you some more, which I know we all love.
Well, I don't know how you guys feel about.
Did you watch the budget presentations yesterday?
I was
Not yet.
unable to.
Do you want me to pop up my general fund tab so you can see it? It gives you a quick and dirty
If
on
you
the
can give us
budget
a
for
quick-
next
a
year.
quick
You can kind of
rundown,
just describe
I think-
and help
Yeah.
us understand where the,
Yeah.
what the pot money is.
It's going to answer maybe 1 out of 20 questions, but it at least
Okay.
gives you a starting
And
point
I mean,
of how we look at
we
it.
understand that there's lots of constraints from lots of different angles on it, but we don't always see those, so.
I just really want Ken to get his steps in, so he has to get up and down 15 times. You're welcome, Ken. That's what happens when you don't join my walking challenge. So this is what council got yesterday. Hopefully I haven't blocked it out from bad memories.
Was this a study session yesterday?
It was the first budget development meeting. You missed a good time. We had to talk about every fee in the city that was changing. It's thinking. I'm gonna just bounce to the ones you care about if you don't mind. All right. So what I presented to council was the cost of the police union, because we know what theirs is. They're in the last year of their contract. So theirs was a step movement and 3.5. I then presented a step movement, rank advancements, the continuation of longevity for everyone else. So for example, when I talked about the police union, 1 step and 3.5 came in at 586,000 plus 10,000 affecting, now these aren't ad pays, this is like your on-call, call-out, overtime lines. So there's usually a slight tweak there. Where'd my mouse go? Okay, so this is what we would be spending in the budget. So when I talk about the base file, which is your first column, that's not our 24 budget. That's our budget as of the snapshot moment of salary projections. So if you had people that received their WOOC that didn't have it last year, but they're now eligible, it wouldn't have shown in 24, it does show in the 25 base. So this is a build off of a clean file, not last year's budget. The middle column that has general fund in pink, so the step total and the police, it's going from 30,522,000 up to 31,716,000. It's an increase of 1.2 million roughly, or 3.91%. When you break it down by employee group type, so this isn't department, this is by either collective bargaining or pay scale. Fire management's costing me an extra 12,000, fire union's 163. Union extra, that's those weird little things we talked about. General employees are 244, police management's 46, police civilian 114, and sworn is 586. If you take out the 2 unions, if you take out the union scale and the police union scale, the increase to the general fund is 427,000.
So what was it? On the slide back, what was it?
So this is up on the website under the Agenda Center.
So that's what it would cost for us to move a step
No,
next year?
this is you right now, no table adjustment, rank advancements, and the role of longevity. Your increase up, same with paramedic pay. But this is doing nothing to your table period. This is like status quo.
And so this is for 25, so you're factoring in the police union raise.
Because we know what their table
And
adjustment
ours
is.
will be flat. This is built with ours being flat.
Yeah, that theirs is the only one that's known.
So that's the
Yeah, that
597.
Direct wages is the 586. That's the increase. Do you want to see a full budget comparison? Because it's tedious, but I can bring it. I don't know if I can necessarily have it ready for next week. And I'm going to be working off of different sets of numbers than what you're seeing here.
Can you give me just the Reader's Digest of what we're looking at on this page here? So 6.7% is that's the cost that's going up.
Yep.
As a, what?
For police,
wages,
what
for
you're calling it
police
there.
sworn only with wages.
Okay.
That includes their rank advancements as well. And again, it's gonna come out a different number completely when we actually apply the budget, because we'll use active head count, not the snapshot head count. There's no way to keep a living document up to date.
And so you said just to move us onto the step plan was
Up to 10.
10?
That's from where you would have been placed in 25. Do you want to see that breakdown by position?
Does that 210 include day
Civilians.
staff? Okay. Because I think you had like 160 something in the
It's 190, I think,
the
for
PowerPoint
sworn,
you gave us the other
whatever
day.
you guys are. So the current, which is B, is where with rank advancements and longevity rolling for next year. And then placement is C. And now that's built off of the salary projection file. So again, if you looked at that, it would show the vacants. I wouldn't have done any of your any of your changes this spring. I have like 7 versions of this. I think this is the right one today. I have to change the date every day in case I screw something up. So
So is this a projection?
Mhm.
I mean, obviously, I'm just a lay person, but are you over, but like, where are you close to budget? Like, there's no wiggle room? I mean, help us understand where we could have some conversation about
yeah.
that.
So so we run the salary projection file. Let me show you what one looks like.
Oh, never. Sorry,
I'm gonna
I found my own mistake. We're
I'm
good.
gonna pull it off so I make sure I don't get the names, so give me just a sec. I understand that because this is not all public. Okay, come back up. So this is a formatted salary projection file. This is every element of your job that is tied to wages and an individual human being. So we're talking about people, not FTE. In your case, it's the same thing. When you look at it, your title's showing in the far right because I've filtered names out. It's very clunky. In column here, let me highlight it. This is everything we budget by a person. So your WOOC's in here, your medical is not, your dental is longevity, life insurance, EAP, clothing allowance, workers' comp modifier, all of that is accounted for. And so we take this entire cost and I apply the new wages. So I even tweak it by your workers' comp percentage because it is an expense for us. And that's what we're talking about, this whole ball to get there. And then I have to split it down by fund, which you don't care overly much about. But this is what it looks like per person, maybe. I don't think, let's see if I have a filter on. I don't. So that's everything we budget for by person. And we do this for everybody in the city, including vacant positions. There's also a line in here for the WOOC, which shows up as a human because I have to budget for it. But it doesn't show as an FTE. But when I talk about the whole budget, those numbers are included. When I take these overall numbers, this, when we're done versus what goes into the budget, I'm usually within 0.5 to 1/4% accurate from Excel to the system. Now, at some point in the budget, we have to stop updating stuff too, and we're looking at a stopgap point. So between like June and October, there are changes that occur that we just have to absorb. The general fund is hard because there is money, it's not just tax dollars, there's also interfunds that come in. Like IT is paid by interfund, every department pays a little bit towards it. So the general fund pays from the fire department, but it's kind of all starts at the same pot. How do you want to see that breakdown? Do you just want to see overall budgets? Because I have to talk about operating because I can't avoid it.
No, that's okay, I guess.
Fire trucks are expensive.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's just those things have to show up. And I can show you 24's budget and show you what it looks like.
And that's all right. I mean, simple guy, I'm not gonna understand that.
You will if we walk through it.
We wanted, I mean, our biggest thing obviously, right, is to get what we feel like our guys can ratify. Right,
Understand.
in the contract. And it's actually really nice to have this conversation.
So
And try to find out what those guys, because we don't obviously want to bankrupt the city here at all. We just want to get what's fair, and it's nice having a conversation knowing where those boundaries lie of
So
what's possible.
I knew the first year with nothing was gonna be a really bitter pill, and I knew it when I passed it across. The placement of the table, getting everything rolling, being able to make any corrections that might have to show up in MOU if we find an error. I don't think we will. But the first year, if you pile a bunch of money as you're trying to build a table, employees don't understand how it works. All they see is what they saw that first year. The first year is usually the leanest year. When we converted to the city table from, you remember the one council wanted pay for performance and then they refused to fund it? We went from 3 decimal places to 2. We had people get like less than $1 a year fractional raises because that role. I applied, made sure everyone had at least, I believe, $100 raise. I can't afford a step movement this year for everybody with police sitting at that massive 3.5. I have to be honest, these are the most expensive union contracts we've had in a very long time. And COVID kind of derailed everything for everybody. Inflation, I know, is atrocious. Just going to the grocery store is easily 30 to 40% more for most people. That's not even including gas. We aren't even going to talk about the cost of housing. I mean, if you didn't own a house before COVID, you're screwed now. So what we can do is we can sit down and if there's certain areas you're worried in, the problem with a new scale is it's about the long term. You have to have the long-term view, but that doesn't put milk on the table right now.
Right.
And we're very aware of that. So we know year one is lean. And it's just the cost of the getting you on the table I have to account for. And police, I'm not gonna lie, they're super expensive this year. So the step movements help so we can talk about much more reasonable figures at the table. But at the end of the day, you do have a right to see what it looks like. And I can kind of break it down for you and show you. We also have some oddities in the fire department that make it hard budget-wise. The biggest is the overtime calculation. So that's something we've left alone. I don't even want to try to mount that hill. But that's a very expensive benefit for us. So there has to be a huge chunk of money set aside for that. So it's just things like that, that they all just kind of snowball together. And I want us all to understand what goes into it. I can try to get something together that I think might help if you're okay with that. I don't know exactly what that would look like right now, but I'm willing to try. And if I come back next week and I'm like, I failed miserably, here's what I got, we can laugh at it. I'm not offended by that because it's a lot to process. But I can't look at the whole city budget, the 135 million, because that is not the money we're talking about.
I guess if there was a way to have a number attached to this particular slice of this big pie.
Well, I can tell you what the cost is now. I can't tell you where it can go.
Okay, and then, because if we had that, or even like a decent estimate of it, then we could easily look at all these things, like all these cost projections for our other proposals, or the wage increases or table placement, and look at it and say, maybe what's most important, could you shift money from here to there within that slice of pie without trying to, because we don't want to overstep and take from, other departments that need it, but we want to do our best to get to where it's fair, I guess.
So
And
I can't tell you
we do
what I'm
everything
gonna
we can
have.
for our members.
Like, I can't tell you what I'm gonna have, because I don't know. I can tell you what it looks like, what the expense looks like right now. And I can tell you already, the expense on the table is greater than what we can levy. So regardless of what we do here, if we do anything, we're cutting somewhere. It's just, we have safety issues in parks due to lack of staffing and old infrastructure. That is something we all know we have to address. That's general fund money. We can do some shifting, but again, I can bring you an estimated expense. I don't know what that looks like, because council has the very tough decision of raising taxes, cutting services, taking foregone, still raising taxes. So those are kind of the only two apples in the cart right now. We cut or we tax. And right now I can't tax for what we're asking. But I will bring you a rough estimate of what the personnel budget looks like, and I can bring you what 24's operating looks like, just so you can kind of see how expenses flow in and out of departments, if that helps.
Yeah.
I don't think it's gonna give you a magic number, because I don't have it. If I had it, the council would be thrilled. But I think it would give us a good working dialogue on how the city budget flows. Oh boy, I'll write that down. All right, I will do my best. I promise nothing stellar.
Well, we appreciate that.
Likewise.
It helps, it sure helps us, we just look at the numbers and just think, what does this mean? I mean, these numbers could be higher, and so it really helps put it into context of the whole.
Would you like to see it broken down kind of by department instead? I have that for personnel. It doesn't help a lot, but it kind of helps you understand how many you can kind of see the pie without actually dishing it out. Let me pop that up. It can take like 5 minutes to load, so let me see if I have it up. I don't. Take that down. For example, so a general fund hit this year, it's not a hit, it's just letting you know. Like, we're pulling 43,000 for general fund out of taxes to pay for the education piece. So that's gotta go into the bill. Yeah, what else I got? My email should never be on screen. That's the MERP one. Come on, computer. Okay, so this, I'm not going to ask you to try to read it, but I'm going to explain what I did here. So this is each fund in the city, is kind of the blue lines, or in your case, the watery blue grayish color. And then underneath that, I have it broken down by that kind of employee group type we talked about. So general fund is always the one we talk about because that's taxes. And this breaks it down by function. If I you're going to destroy my stuff, aren't you? So that breaks it down by department and then employee type. So police is an example because they have 3 different pay scales as they try to kill me off to manage. Management, civilian sworn, and then those extras, that on-call, call-out, overtime, court time, holiday stuff. This is the breakdown by department. So in planning, I am going to spend $794,000. If I do a step movement, I'm going to spend $817. That also accounts for any changes in insurance for medical based on enrollment types, not premium levels. So someone gets married, we add a spouse. So planning is going up by $23,000. I can break things down, and again, this isn't a comparison to last year's budget. I haven't done that yet. So when I say this is the cost of a step, I'm not saying, I can tell you what the step movement is based off now, not the increase it was off last year. Your brain hurt? So I can do a lot of these breakdowns because I have everything in here. That's every benefit, every ad pay, broken down by account line. And those are all the iterations to get there. So, thoughts, gentlemen?
That helps, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll try to bring something semi-educated, but again, I honestly, if I had to tell you on my life what we have next year, I don't know. I honestly have no clue. I don't know what council's gonna do. I don't know what the state's gonna do. Sales tax, we're estimating down like over $1 million. Cable franchise, I can speak, goes down every year. Liquor tax lately has gone up. That says a lot about society. Those things fluctuate every year. We build off of AIC's most conservative numbers. Building permits plays into a lot. Good years, that number's up. Interest coming off of our investments, that's a total Gene area. I know he's looking at 5 million, but not all of that fits in one fund. It's kind of all over the place. It's like riding a horse trying to shoot a gun to hit a wobbly tomato. But I can bring you kind of a FYI.
Yeah, that would be helpful if you.
And
were able to
I've never felt
create
like you're
something
trying
that.
to take away from others, and I respect the fact that you're trying to protect. It was tough to build this scale. Jordan helped a lot. I've been annoying him for several years now on what he wants, what this looks like, because it is a culture that I'm not a part of. So he had to explain to me what the stipend means. Because I'm like, we're going to pay people to do a job they are not going to do. So we finally got it through my thick skull how it worked. But it is a very expensive endeavor for us to move on this. You saw the lifetime earnings are almost 5 figures for everybody. The average step is, right now, I took everyone's and averaged it, is about a 4. That's a lot for us to absorb per person in the next 8 years. And unfortunately for all of us, we're all young enough that we're going to be doing this again in 4 years together. You're also going to be here, if I recall right. I think we might have a couple iterations of this together. I think I have at least 4 of these left. So it is a good scale, but I know it's a tough contract. It's a tough contract. And I know the raises this year are not thrilling, but I kind of got to hope you got a long-term view, but again, that doesn't put milk on the table.
Okay, we have a lot to go
We have
over
a
in the
lot of
next week.
reading.
So, I think we're okay with calling it a day today.
Us
and,
too, we're tired.
We'll reconvene next Friday.
If you run into any problems, make a note so I can address them next time. I expect, since we're kind of done trading proposals at this point, it'll just be counters and discussion. Obviously, if we go with our 20, the concept of 20, we still have a lot of work. I've started highlighting everything we're going to need to clean, and I'm just highlighting it in the CBA, and I kind of figure when we get to that point, I will pop up all the changes we've agreed on tentatively, and then we'll have to start hacking through some of those sections as a joint venture. I don't see another way to do it. There's like 10 calculations we have to adjust, language, references, all the sections are gonna need renumbered.
Yeah, a lot.
Can we get electronic versions of the job descriptions? Okay.
Please track
Send them to
changes
Jordan.
on that.
Yeah,
We will.
yeah, you can
'Cause
just
it's
send them to me and
a
I'll.
lot. We finally added line numbers, because I'm like, okay, we'll send those over. Other than that, we will see you next Friday at 8:30. Jordan, I'll be in touch next week about future dates.
Okay.
So hopefully we can, because I'm gonna start clogging up conference rooms and it makes everybody in the city mad.
Yeah, we'll iron those out as soon as you send them over.
Okay, well, have a good, I don't know if it's your weekend, I hope it is. Have a good, it's mine, so I'm very excited about that.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thanks.